Alrighty, Jeff. Well, let's get it right into it. So, how did you get started in the movie industry?
When I was in high school, my dad said to me, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to make movies." And he said, "Okay, do you want to produce them or direct them?" And I said, "I don't know. What's the difference?" And he said, "Well, if you want to produce them, then that is the business side of the film business, meaning you should probably go and get a business degree or a law degree." He said, "But if you want to direct them, that's the artistic side of the film business, so you should probably go to film school and get a film degree." And I said, "I think the producing thing sounds good. I'm going to go that route." So in undergrad, I got a business degree, and then I went to law school and got a law degree. And I graduated and went right to work for a film studio. Now, I thought what I wanted to do was work in the production division of a film studio, which is the division that makes the movies. But they didn't have any jobs. I got a job offer, but it wasn't in the production department. It was in the distribution department, which at the time, I didn't even know what distribution was. So distribution is the selling of the movies as opposed to the making of them. But it was the only job available. So I said, what the heck, I'm going to take that job. And I took it thinking that, in a year or two, hopefully I'll prove myself and I'll be able to transition into the production department. Well, lo and behold, the distribution division was actually pretty darn good. I learned a ton, and I spent 22 years of my career in distribution before I switched over to production, which in hindsight was one of the best things that could ever happen, because if you know how to sell movies, it's way, way, way better. It's way better if you can do that to make them, because if you don't know how to sell them, then you can't really make them. So it worked out really well.
Yeah. So how different is that then? So that's, like you said, it's the business side of it. Most people just think of movies and they just think of, the production, artistic side of it, making the movies, getting people together, writing a story. It's, there's a whole different side in selling the movie that, most people think they just air it in the theaters, right?
Yep. So that's why we call it the film business. So that's the business side of the film industry. The film is what I call the artistic side. The business is the selling side. So I also teach at San Diego State University in the film department, and I teach finance and distribution. And here's what I say to my students in the first lecture, the first 10 minutes of the first lecture. I say, here, and you might not be able to see it in the cameras, but here's an independent, I teach filmmaking for independent films, not for big Hollywood studio films. Okay. So if you're an independent producer and you want to make a $500,000 film or something like that, which is what most films are, that's what most film students do. So if you're an indie producer and you're going to make an indie feature film, this is what it's going to look like. Here's a feature film, all right? From here to here is finance. It's getting the money to make the movie. From here to here is distribution and marketing. It's after you've made your movie, it's selling it and marketing it and creating audience awareness so that your movie will be seen by people. Mm-hmm. And then this little thing in the middle, that's called production.
Okay.
That's the making of the movie, and that's what everybody wants to do. That's the fun part. Yeah. That's directing, writing, sound, lighting, cinematography. It's all the fun stuff. It's the art of filmmaking. But in the grand scheme of things, it's only this big. Financing and distribution is everything, as they are in most businesses. Getting the money to make something, like, in real estate. You want to build up a building? I mean, think of how long it takes to finance it, how long it takes to build it, and then how long it takes to sell all the units in it. That's the building is the fun part. So listen, I love making movies. I've made 7 feature films. I've written and directed 3 of them. I produced all of them. There's nothing more fun than making a movie in my world. And it's challenging, don't get me wrong. It's super challenging to make an independent film. And, the people who make it, the production people tell you, it's crazy, ridiculously long hours and very challenging. And it is. But relative to the other stuff, this is the party. Like for me, this is 6 weeks of holiday for me from the real business. But, if I could do nothing but do this the rest of my life, I would do it because it's so enjoyable. Mm-hmm. You get to be creative. You get to be on set. You get to, you're creating a story from nothing. You're having actors tell the story. It's a magical experience to do that, but you got to sell it. If you don't sell it, then and nobody wants to watch it, then you're not going to be able to afford to make the next one. Yeah. That's the business.
So you were involved in selling, and then how did you transition from there into making the movies?
Good question. So, as I said, I was 22 years in distribution. So, of those 22 years, about 12 of them were spent working in the system, i.e. for studios and independent like big production companies and big distribution companies. And I was a salesperson primarily. I was going to markets around the world and buying and selling movies and TV shows. So I learned that business well. Then I said, hey, I think, I'm sort of very entrepreneurial in spirit. So there came a time when I said, I'm going to do this on my own. I think I learned enough of it that I want to go and branch off on my own. So I was working for a studio. I was in Canada at the time. That's where I'm from. And there was a big media company that I had a very good job with. I was senior vice president, probably could have become president of that company. Was on a fast track, making a lot of money and doing really well. But I wanted more. I wanted to be in control. I was an entrepreneur and I wanted to own the operation. So I remember this. I went to my boss and I said, and it's a public company. It's a big company, right? I said, how do I get in on ownership in this company? Like, I don't mind. I love working here. I love what I do. But how do I get in, to be part of like the real conversation, the ownership? And not the whole thing, obviously, just, a piece of it.
Right.
He said, there's 2 ways you do it. You either buy stock like everybody else, or you marry one of the daughters of the owners. And I said, well, that's not going to work. I'm already married. They said, well, you buy stock.
Yeah.
And then I said, that's it. They said, that's it. That's how it works. I mean, I had stock options, obviously, and you get that, but you just got to wait your turn. So I said, well, I have a different idea. I'm going to leave and I'm going to start my own company. And they said, what? You can't do that. And I said, yeah, I can. And I remember they sent me, I was based in Toronto, Canada. That's where my office, that's where our sales distribution company was. But the head office was in Montreal. So they said, before you resign, you need to speak to the chairman. So I flew to Montreal, and he's this iconic guy. Everybody in Canada knew this guy. This is like a Hollywood mogul type of guy. And I remember that meeting exactly. He's a nice guy, and I knew him very well because we'd had lots of meetings together and everything like that. I go into his office. His name was Harold Greenberg, and he said, Deverett, I hear you want to leave the company. And I go, Harold, I do, but for the right reasons, I want to start my own business. Mm-hmm. And he said to me like this, exactly. I remember it like sitting across from you. Like that's how, he said, do you know how tough it is out there? And without hesitation, I said, Harold, with all due respect, I'm the only guy in the company who's actually out there.
Yeah.
Who do you think's doing all the sales? When's the last time you left your office and met with a customer?
Wow.
And he stopped for a second and he said, you're going to make it.
Yeah.
You're going to be just fine. Anyways,
wow.
So that was a great moment. It was a gutsy moment, but I didn't even think about it because he was that kind of guy. I could say that to him.
Yeah.
And he knew that I was that kind of guy. So anyways, I left the company. I started my own business, a distribution company. Small, it was risky. I had to take a second mortgage on my house, finance the company, because you had to acquire product. So the first thing I acquired, because I was in the business, so I knew all the lines, I knew all the movies, I knew what the pulse of the industry was at the time. And at that time, before Marvel started making movies, the feature films, so Marvel were comic books, and they had these animated TV series. So the first thing I acquired was the Spider-Man animated TV series for distribution and to sell it on TV and video and that type of thing. And it was risky. I had to pay a lot of money for it, but I knew that area really well. So I acquired that, and that's how I started my company. And then
What do you mean when you say that you acquired it?
I acquired the rights for it. So the people who made it was Marvel at the time. Like it was Stan Lee made that. As a matter of fact, I have in my office, I have a poster with Spider-Man and the Hulk on it, signed by Stan Lee himself.
Wow.
Yeah. So I acquired the rights for Canada, just for Canada.
Okay.
So I didn't own the product. I just had the rights to sell it in Canada. And the way it works is you sell it and then you take a fee or commission for selling it. So at that time it was a 25% commission. So let's say I would sell it to, or it's selling is licensing in the TV business. So I'd license it to, say, one of the TV stations in Canada for them to air it over a certain period of time. And let's say they pay $500,000. I take 25%, $125,000 as a fee, and then Marvel gets the rest.
Oh, wow.
And that's how you make money in that business. But if you have enough product and good product and you do that enough, not dissimilar to real estate.
Yeah.
Okay, so I started that. Then I started to grow it, and I was in the business. Like, I knew it well. I knew all the customers. I knew a lot of the suppliers and everything like that. So I just had to get started, and it went really well. And it grew and grew and grew, and I expanded into various areas. And so I worked that for about 10 years, and then I decided to switch gears and do what I really, really wanted to do, which was produce movies. That was always my dream.
Which was make them,
produce them.
Okay.
All right. So I didn't give up my distribution. I had my distribution company, but I stepped away from it. I hired somebody else to run it while I became the producer making stuff. So now, if my friends were here, or my wife will tell you this story. This is what I said to her. I said to her, I was just joking at the time, but I said, okay, honey, I've been in distribution for 22 years, and you know that my dream has always been to make movies, and that time has come, and I need to have a midlife crisis. So here's the options for my midlife crisis. One is I can get a really expensive fancy sports car. Two is I can get a really hot young girlfriend. Or three, I can make a movie. And she said, well, make the movie.
Yeah.
And I said, bad choice. The movie's going to cost twice as much as the car and the girlfriend. But anyways, so I went and produced my first movie at the time. The movie was called My Brother's Keeper. I wrote the script. It was based on a story that my grandfather had told me and my cousins and my brothers for years and years and years. This really nice fable. I don't even know if it was true, but it was a nice fable about how two brothers help each other. It's kind of like Rich Man, Poor Man.
Wow.
And I always loved that story. So I wrote a script around it, and I called it My Brother's Keeper, and that was my first movie. And it was like having another child. That's how it was. Such an emotionally passionate experience for me. Even when I talk about it, I feel that passion. Making a movie, it's such a big deal. So financially, and in terms of your energy and your attention and everything, it consumes you. Making a movie consumes you, a feature film. Mm-hmm. But it's such a wonderful experience. But then I had to go sell it. But the good news was I knew how to sell it. Mm-hmm. And I had pre-sold most of it anyways. So I was in a really good position. And I just enjoyed making it so much. And then thereafter, I've made 6 features since then. And then I switched gears and I did some television. I made 40 half hours of a kids' TV series. And all this, when I say I made it, I produced it, meaning that I organized the whole thing. But I also executive produced it, meaning that I arranged all the financing for it. And pretty well, I own all these shows myself. So unlike a Hollywood producer who works for a studio and maybe produces for them, they don't own anything. They're just a hired gun. I'm an entrepreneur, so I own everything that I make. So, which is very risky because you're financing it and you have to sell it. But like anything else in life, if you own it and you do well with it, the rewards are much greater. And
you're still getting paid royalties?
As for this, so the sales are license deals, right? So royalties are they're misused in our industry, okay? Royalties, when you think royalties, you think an actor probably. Like an actor acted in a movie, the movie plays, they get a royalty, or music or something like that. Mm-hmm. So in our business, in the distribution side, when the movie is under license, under contract, then they're constantly paying you or whatever the fee is. Like for instance, like I have 3 movies on Netflix. So the way Netflix works is you do one flat rate deal with them. People don't understand how people say, oh, the more people that watch it, the more you get paid. No. Mm-hmm. Netflix, you do a flat rate deal. So Netflix might say to you, okay, we'll give you, $300,000 for this movie for 3 years. Okay. And they say, we'll pay you quarterly, $300,000 over the course of that 3-year deal. Mm-hmm. And that's what they do. Every quarter you get whatever it is, the chunk of money pro rata. Then the deal ends 3 years later, and it's over. You've gotten all your revenue. The deal's over. There's no more payments, no more royalties.
And they remove it.
Then or you renegotiate it, and you say, "Hey, did you get enough viewership? Would you like to re-up it, renew it?" And then maybe they do. But if they don't like, if they didn't get enough viewership or don't like it, then they give you your rights back. It's over. You have your movie, and you go sell it to somebody else if you can.
So in that case, that's an exclusive deal?
Yes. Well, It's exclusive for that level of viewing. Now we're getting into the nuts and
Okay.
bolts of the industry.
Okay.
Yeah, did you want to get into this?
For that level?
Okay, so Netflix. I said Netflix. Netflix is what we call a subscription video on demand streaming platform.
Okay.
So it's video on demand, meaning you watch it when you want to watch it.
Right.
But subscription means that you pay one monthly fee and you get to watch all the programming that they have on their platform. So Netflix is like that. You pay $13 a month,
Right.
and you watch whatever they have. You know, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus. These are all what we call subscription streaming services.
Okay.
All right. So when you say it's exclusive to subscription streaming services.
Okay.
So once I have it licensed to Netflix, I can't license it also to Paramount Plus or to HBO Max I can't license it to anybody else that way. But I can license it to one broadcaster in each territory on free TV. So say like one of my movies, Full Out, one of my gymnastics movies, when I first licensed it to Netflix, in addition to that, I also licensed it to the Disney Channel. So at the same time as it was playing on Netflix for subscription, it was also playing on the Disney Channel television.
Okay.
And I could also put it onto iTunes and sell it what we call transactional video on demand. So people could also stream it. Like, not everybody has Netflix. Everybody thinks, oh, everybody in the world has Netflix. Not everybody does. A lot of people do. But some people actually still pay to rent a movie, watch it on TV.
Oh, yeah.
So the way the deals work, and this is all negotiated. You have to know sort of which platforms and which levels you do your exclusive deals for, and then you keep the rights for the rest of it and sell it, whatever's left.
Okay. So you're saying all subscription-based streaming services, it's exclusive to Netflix?
No, it's exclusive to the subscription service that you license it to.
Right.
I mean, I happen to deal with Netflix, right? But perhaps I would have licensed that to Disney Plus. If Disney Plus has the rights for that for 3 years, then I can't sell it to Netflix.
Okay.
It's exclusive to them.
But at that same time, it can be rented on iTunes.
Yes.
And played on free TV.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This is understanding the business of.
Yeah.
So this is what makes filmmakers, the people who make the films, this makes their head spin. Because they don't want to have anything to do with this.
Yeah.
This is the distribution
Right.
side of the business.
So is one more valuable than the other? Like free TV, is that you get more revenue from there versus Netflix, or how does that work?
It depends. It depends on a lot of things. It depends. One is it depends on who wants your movie the most and what deal you're able to negotiate, right? Timing is always important, kind of is there a lull with this kind of, sometimes they need certain genre movies, sometimes they need sports movies, action movies, thrillers, whatever. So it's all about what you can negotiate. Sometimes a Netflix deal will be better than a TV deal. Sometimes a TV deal will be better. Sometimes just doing transactional, renting it on iTunes could be the best.
Right. So what would you say, I guess, the pros and cons of the business side of it versus like the writing and the directing?
Yeah, it's a good question. By the way, just for your viewers, I keep saying iTunes because that's my generation. They call it Apple TV now. Okay. So, iTunes is Apple TV, all right. But Apple, they also have Apple TV Plus, so it's really confusing. So iTunes is just what my generation uses that. All right. So listen, the fun part of the business is writing, directing. There's no question. I mean, that's the creative part. That's storytelling. I mean, when you think about the film business, you want to be a storyteller, and that's writing it and directing it. See, writing it is creating the story, and directing it is telling the story. So if there was a story, like even a nursery rhyme, and you told it and then I told it, we would probably tell it just a little differently.
Right.
But it's the same story. So directing is how you tell the story. And that's why directors have a certain style or an eye for what they do. And it's really fun. Like, I love directing. First of all, in terms of just a business environment, I mean, you're a leader on the set. Everybody is kind of working with, you're telling them what you want and then they're executing it. So that's fun. But being able to work with actors and express your vision and say, this is kind of how I want to see it, and the lighting and the camera angles and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's so artistic to put it all together and tell the story the way you envision telling the story. Like, think about it. Even you and I sitting here, all right? You've got a camera there, a camera here, and a camera here, right? But these are all static cameras on tripods. So you'll edit it together, and this is what we call standard coverage. Okay, you've got a 2-shot there and 2 1-shots here of medium shots, probably from here to here. That's what I'm guessing, right? Now, think of if you're a storyteller. So that's basic. That's how you do this kind of coverage, right? But what if I said to you, why don't we bring in like a jib arm where I could kind of swoop over your head and land in mine on a close-up shot?
Okay.
Why don't we bring in a dolly where we could go back and forth and scan both of us, or bring it in this way as opposed to that way? See, the closer a shot gets into a person, the more personal it gets.
Right.
That's when you start to get emotion. So a director thinks about all this stuff. They think about what parts of the story you want to bring, what emotions, what looks, what kind of, and remember, it's the exact same shot. Like, you and I talking is the exact same thing. But if I want more passion for what I'm saying right now, I'd put that camera on a little dolly here and start slowly bringing it into my face, and my face gets tighter and tighter, and I'm saying the same words, but it feels more emotional, more passionate.
More attention is centered on it.
Yeah. So, and then of course, the final stage is the edit, where you take all this footage that, you know, the director captured or whatever, and then you cut it in such a way to make it even more telling. So for instance, that camera could be coming in on me and I'm talking, but it might be a little boring and they want to see your reaction shot. So maybe the camera captures you as I'm talking, is focused on you reacting to me.
Okay.
That's, I'm talking basic stuff that all directors know, but that's why storytelling's so much fun, because there's so many different things you can do with it to tell your story in such an effective way. And that's regardless of whether you have $100 million or $100,000. You know, you still have to really think about how you're going to tell your story. But that's the fun part of the film business for sure, is storytelling. All right, and there's a lot of elements that go to, you need a good cinematographer, somebody who knows how to really capture the shot, how to light it properly, how to capture the sound, all this kind of stuff. It's got to be done properly. This is what we call production value. How to dress the set, how many people to put in the scene, if you're blowing stuff up, all this kind of stuff, special effects. It's all these things go to telling the story in a really impactful way. That's the fun part. That's what everybody wants to do. That's what film school is all about. I love it. And that's the magic of making movies. But it's not the business. The business, like any other business, is selling the movies, which is the distribution part. Now, I also happen to like that a lot too, because that's also creative in a lot of ways. I mean, it's kind of what you do for a living. You have to know how to engage customers. Like, you have to know how to talk to people. You have to know their sweet spots. It's timing. You got to know who to approach at what time, how to say this to them, what to say, how to present, when to cut yourself off, when to go more, when to dine them, when to not dine them. So what materials to use. Remember, you're selling basically off you're taking this huge feature film and you're showing them a 90-second trailer or promo reel and a piece of artwork, and that's it. And that's all they have time for. And you're pitching, when in the case of Netflix, against 5,000 other potential movies that they could buy at the time. Wow. You got to really be focused. You got to be good. You got to be persistent. You got to be very passionate. There's tons of rejection. Tons of rejection. If you don't like rejection, do not get into the film business, into the independent film business. But when you do something, it's super rewarding. You make a sale to Netflix, you feel like you're on a cloud. It's as rewarding as making your movie, maybe more so.
Wow.
And the only thing more rewarding than that is when you're the filmmaker who's made the movie and it comes on the first night that Netflix plays it. Wow. And you sit there with your family and you watch it and boom, it comes on, it's on Netflix or it's on, anywhere on television. I remember the first moment watching the first episode of the television series I made, and it came on, and I'd seen it 1,000 times in the editing room. I knew every single, but when that music played, it came on and that music played, it was like, oh, well, it's magic.
You're here now.
Magic. Yeah, you've arrived.
Wow.
Yeah.
That really is something special.
And that hopefully lots of other people are watching at the same time as you are.
Yeah. How, do you get that feedback? Does Netflix share that stuff with you?
No, that's the only problem.
No.
So the subscription video on demand platforms do not share the viewership with you. And that's one of the big complaints that filmmakers have, because you want to celebrate it, right? You want to feel good about how many people watched your movie, but they don't share that because it's a flat deal. It's not there's certain cable stations that used to be where per views, they would tell you how many people watched and you would get paid based on how many people watched.
Okay.
But Netflix and the subscription video on demand services don't do that. They pay you a flat rate, and therefore they don't have an obligation to tell you how many people watched. And you just want it, like, I begged Netflix. First, I said, please just share it with me for two reasons. One is I just want to celebrate it as a filmmaker. I just want to feel good that, several million people watch my movie, hopefully, right? The other thing is if the number's big, I would want to make another one for you, like a sequel or something like that. If you tell me, then, I'll offer to do another one.
They don't give you anything?
Yeah. They don't share anything.
Do you think maybe that's because they don't want you to have leverage and know that it did well? So then if it were to come time that you wanted to make a sequel, then you wouldn't go on Netflix?
That's exactly why. They don't want you negotiating with them or second guessing them. Like, they don't want me, like they say, oh, Jeff, wow, holy smokes, this is how it works in a Netflix meeting. It's you and me sitting here. Okay. They have an iPad in front of them and they're just looking up the numbers. It's all numbers, right? Oh, this, but they don't tell you. Okay, yeah, it looks good. What does that mean? What do you mean looks good? Like,
oh, you're saying that you guys have a meeting and you're reviewing how it went?
So I'll tell you in a second. But anyways, they don't want you saying to them, well, hey, look how well it did. Mm-hmm. You didn't pay me enough. Right. You need to pay me more. They don't want that conversation. Right. Okay? So that meeting that I'm just describing, where they sit with their iPad and they review your numbers, is the renewal meeting.
Okay.
See, the license is coming due. So I've had two of those. The license is coming due, and it's basically, are they going to renew or not? And you don't even need a meeting. Like, they're going to look at a number. If the number hits their algorithm, whatever their forecast or whatever their expectation is, they renew. And then it's just a matter of discussing how much they're going to renew for. And if it doesn't, they don't renew. It's just how it works. The people you have the meetings with have never seen your movie. They've never met you. They're analysts. They're just, this is numbers. Yeah. This is all numbers.
Wow. That's
it's not, oh, we like your movie, we don't like your movie. They don't care if they like it or not. They care if their audience is enjoying it. Yeah. And if their audience is engaged by it and watching it. And if they are, you get a slot. And if they aren't, they don't need it.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like a lot more streaming platforms have come out since Netflix came out, because I feel like in the beginning, Netflix was like the powerhouse. And then, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, HBO Max, it's kind of leveled the playing field a little.
Well, the way it happened, first of all, Hulu was first, and Netflix was the first in the business, but Netflix was not the first in the subscription video on demand business. I don't know how much you know about Netflix, but Netflix was actually not in streaming. Netflix started off as a mail order house. Okay. So when the DVD business was strong, when like Blockbuster Video, and you drive to the store and you pick your video and you take it home on a disc, right? So Netflix started, this guy Reed Hastings started this company called Netflix, and he said, hey, there's a lot of people who don't want to go to the store or can't go to the store because they live in rural areas. It's too far for them to drive, or it's too much of a pain, or the winter storms or something like that. They don't want to leave their house and go to a store, but they do want to watch movies. Mm-hmm. I have a good business idea. We're going to be a mail order house, and we have the catalog of all these movies, and they can we will mail them 3 movies in an envelope every week. They'll choose the movies. We'll mail it to them. They get 3 or 4 days to watch it or whatever. Then they mail it back to us, and we can mail them more. That was Netflix. That was the business model for Netflix for many years.
Wow.
And everybody said, are you kidding me? Like, that's crazy. You're going to go out of business. That is ridiculous business model. And they struggled because there were thousands of Blockbuster Video stores and Hollywood Video and everything like that. It was very convenient for people to go. Plus, they wanted to go out and look at the movies and touch the boxes and all that kind of stuff. So Netflix was probably on the verge of bankruptcy. Okay, then digital streaming kind of was invented. Okay. And Netflix needed something, and they caught on to this, and they said, hey, let's switch gears, and instead of mailing, let's send it to them digitally. Let's send them a signal through their device, like a computer. There weren't smart TVs at the time. It was, a computer, not even your phones at the time. It was just computers, maybe tablets. And everybody said, oh, you're crazy. Nobody's going to want to watch a movie on a computer. They want to watch it on their television set, in a bigger format type of thing. And Netflix said, well, we'll take a chance. And sure enough, it worked. And everybody said, wow, this is great. I don't have to leave my house. I can stream it. I can just put in a code or whatever, and it'll come and stream. And then, so then the studios, the big studios, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Universal, all these big studios, said, wow, that's kind of cool. This is an interesting way to deliver movies to people. We should talk to Netflix. And they all set up what we call output deals with Netflix, saying, hey, can you stream our product for them? Nobody at the studios ever thought, hey, maybe we should do this ourselves. They thought, Netflix is doing it. Who knows if it's going to last? I mean, it probably won't. It'll probably go down the toilet. So why should we invest in this kind of thing? Mm-hmm. And they said, can you do ours for us? And you can take this much percentage of the sales, and we'll take this much, and we'll give you all our top movies and everything like that, and get them out there. But don't do it when we're only going to give it to you after we release them theatrically or in our means.
Right.
Okay. And that's how Netflix became so huge. Dealing with other people's movies. They never made anything.
Yeah.
Netflix wasn't a production company. They were strictly a streaming company. Then, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, or 5 years ago now, whatever it was, Netflix said, hey, we need to get into the content creation game. Like, the studios at some point could pull their product from us, and we can't take that chance because now we have these big audiences. They need product. They need content. Mm-hmm. Let's start creating our own content. Maybe 7-8 years ago for whatever it was. And that's when they got into this business, and they started creating Netflix original shows, which are gigantic shows. And then the studio said, hey, wait a second. You can't compete with us. We're the ones who make the product. You guys just deliver. You can't.
Wow.
You're in our competition now. Uh-huh. So they said, screw you, Netflix. We're leaving. We're starting our own companies.
Ooh.
That's how all these companies started. Wow. Disney Plus said, enough of this. Netflix isn't controlling our business anymore. When they're competing with us, we're going to control it ourselves.
Wow.
And I say, shame on you, studios. You should have done this 10 years ago.
Huh?
Like, what the heck were you waiting for?
Wow.
But I also say that, like, why did Kentucky Fried Chicken, why were they the last chicken company to get into the chicken nugget business? McDonald's was the first. Why was McDonald's, a hamburger company, the first to get into chicken nuggets? Why wasn't it Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Wow.
That's what the Netflix studio thing was.
Wow. That's crazy. When was that when Netflix was starting? Like the early 2000s?
Yeah, Netflix, the mail order stuff was probably early 2000s, and then they switched into digital probably 2010, maybe 2000, maybe 2008, whatever it was. I can't remember when that happened. And, that was not a slam dunk because nobody knew if people would be willing to watch on their devices.
Yeah.
But people were, especially young people.
So Netflix in that case, so say, Spider-Man comes out, Netflix would buy the rights to it.
Netflix would license the rights. So Spider-Man, is Marvel, right? And they would license it. So Marvel would say, at the time, Marvel was Marvel, but now it's Disney. Disney owns Marvel, okay? So at the time, Marvel would say, okay, Netflix, if you would like to air this movie on Netflix, then license it for, 3 years and give us $50 million or whatever the number is, some huge number, and we will let you have the exclusive rights to put it onto that your subscription, like your monthly subscriber streaming service. Right. But we're going to hold all the other rights. So we still get to put the movies in theaters. We still get to put it on maybe our television station and maybe into our transactional platforms where we're going to sell it. But we won't sell that to anybody else because you have it for 3 years for subscription.
Okay. So when someone does an independent film, is that more like a freelance sort of thing? It's
okay. So I classify the film business sort of in 2 categories: Hollywood,
right,
and independent.
Okay. So
by Hollywood, I mean big budget, A-list actors, big production budget, stuff that you would typically see in a movie theater. When movie theaters were open, obviously. Okay, stuff that you would say, hey, this is big enough that I would be comfortable to pay my $15 to go to the movie theater, and it's good value because it's going to be a really good movie. And they're generally A-list actors and big production value.
Right.
All right. And then there's the independent side, which is low budget, smaller independent movies that aren't financed in the big studio system and usually are made for a lot less money, don't usually have A-list actors, are stuff that you probably wouldn't see. But unless you're really into niche stuff, and some of it's pretty good, some of it's really good, but it doesn't have the cachet of the big Hollywood stuff. So that's one component. The second component is that the studios are very well financed, and they understand the business of film, the business of the film business very well, more so than independents, because equally to making the movies, they also spend money on marketing them. So a Hollywood studio, if they make $100 million feature, they're going to spend $50 to $100 million in marketing it. They're going to buy television advertising. They're going to buy billboards. They're going to make sure the world knows about the movie, because they're not shy to do that. They know they have to do that. They have to create awareness. That's an important component. The independent filmmakers generally don't spend any money on marketing. They're so focused on making their movies that they forget about how to market them. And that's a big disconnect. And that's why most of their movies never get seen, because nobody knows about them. It's not necessarily because they're not bad movies. I mean, they're not big caliber A-list actor movies, but a lot of them are very good movies, but they never get marketed because an independent filmmaker, remember, a studio has a production division and a distribution division. The people who work in distribution, it's like a separate company. They're not filmmakers. They're marketing people. They go to business school. These people go to film school. These people go to business school.
Right.
Okay. An independent film producer is generally a filmmaker. They went to film school. They don't know how to market. And even if they did know how to market, they don't want to do it. It's not fun. They just want to they say, I'm a filmmaker. I'm an artist. I make movies. I don't sell them. Other people sell them. But they don't have anybody else to sell them because they don't have a marketing division in their company because they're not big enough. So that's why independent film struggles so much, is primarily because of the marketing.
Is that because they don't have someone that's involved in their production that's involved in marketing?
Yeah, because they don't think about marketing, because they think like artists. They think like making it is everything. That nobody's really thinking about selling it. So as I told you before, I spend a lot of my time doing consulting for independent filmmakers because I have, a lot of distribution background. So most of the filmmakers, they don't ask me how to make their movies. They're probably better filmmakers than I am. They ask me how to sell their movies. And I say, well, if you want to sell it, you have to do the marketing functions, or you have to hire somebody to do your marketing functions. You have to do what the studios do on a smaller scale. And they say, but I don't know how to do it, or I don't want to do it. And I say, well, we can get you somebody to do it. And then the magic words is, but I can't afford it. I don't have any money tucked away. I mean, a Hollywood studio would never, ever, ever do that. They would never make a movie and not leave any money around for not marketing it. Everybody would get fired if they did that. The marketing division of their company drives the whole business. If marketing says, hey, we can't sell that movie, the movie doesn't get made.
Right.
I mean, it's all about marketing in a studio. With an indie filmmaker, they don't say, oh, well, I don't know if I'll be able to market this film, or I don't know if I'm going to have money. I just want to make it. I want to make it because it's a great story and I'm going to have fun making it and everything. Then they afterwards they think, uh-oh, now what do I do? Like, how do I sell it? And I don't have any money left over to sell it. And that's just the way they think. Now, I'm trying to change that. Like with my clients, I really put, especially the clients who come to me before they make their movies and say, I'm thinking of making this movie. What do you think? I say, I think it could be a good story. Make sure you make it so that it's very audience centric, so that the audience is going to enjoy it. Build things into it potentially that you can connect to audiences, and tuck away no less than 20% of your budget to market the film. See, filmmakers don't want to do that. Like if they're making a $500,000 feature film, I say, get another 100,000, 20% more, tuck it away and leave it tucked away, like lock it away for marketing. Do not touch it and spend it on production, because they'll say, well, I can make a better movie. I said, I know you can make a better movie. We can all make a better movie if we had spent another 100,000. But you're not going to sell it because you got nothing left to sell it with. Like, marketing costs money. You got to do audience awareness campaigns, whether it's social media or whatever advertising. You got to spend money to market it, to create awareness.
Yeah, it sounds like they need a team of people then. It's not just one person who wants to film a movie. It's, you need to have a marketing, you know what I mean?
Well, that's what the studios have. That's what they have. They have marketing divisions, right? Which are in most cases bigger than the production divisions. This is what I always tell my students also. I say, do you want to know what a studio really is? Go to Universal Studios in Hollywood, not the Florida one, the Hollywood one, all right? Enter Universal Studios through the Lancashire Boulevard entrance. There's 2 entrances. There's one on the front and one on the back. Go through Lancashire Boulevard. As you enter in there, off the 101, you're going to drive by this gigantic, big, black, 38-story office building. And on the top of it says NBC Universal. You can see it off the 101 as you drive there. This big, beautiful office building, NBC Universal. And you're just going to drive right by it, and you're going to be all excited to get into the studio and go for the studio tour and see the backlots and the sound stages where they film the movies and and all that kind of stuff. And you'll never think what goes on in that building.
Yeah.
That building's the heartbeat of the entire operation. That's the financial division. It's the marketing division. It's the sales and distribution arm. Those are the people that that's the heartbeat. They make the rest of it go. Without what they do, you wouldn't make any movies, because nobody would be selling them. They couldn't operate. So those business functions are are the business that operate the entire business and allow the filmmakers to make these big epic films. But yet the independent filmmakers, they would never pay any attention to that. Those are the evil people who stay in that building. Those are the business people, the ones we don't want to talk to, because they're not artists. Yeah, they're the business accounting people. They legal people. Ooh.
So what does that consist of then for an independent film to be marketed? I know, Marvel and Spider-Man and stuff, you'll see that on commercials and billboards, maybe social media, but how does an independent film get marketed? Same ways?
No, because independent films will never be big enough to have television advertising. Okay. So TV is very, very expensive. And the economies of scale just don't allow for indie films to do that. Because they can never afford to have the big production values and the big A-list actors. Maybe somebody would take a chance, but they likely wouldn't. All right? So, plus they're not going to buy billboards or anything. So most of the indie film marketing now is done through social media, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Which could be huge.
It could be, but social media is so diluted and so hard to get people's attention because there's so much of it. Mm-hmm. You have to be super strategic to deploy your time and your resources properly. Maybe you're going to use influencers, or maybe you're going to do targeted advertising or something like that. You can't just throw it out there and say, oh, it's social media, everybody's going to hear about it. Right. Because, you get bombarded on social media with all kinds of stuff. So it's very strategic to identify your audience and then really connect to it. So the truth is that indie film producers really, really struggle with marketing, really struggle. Now, it's funny, you and I didn't talk about this before, but one of the major initiatives that I'm doing in my career right now is I created a marketing company for indie filmmakers to do exactly that, to do niche targeting for their indie films. Mm-hmm. I call it the Indie Film Solution. And what we do in that company is basically we watch their movie. Believe it or not, most distributors don't even watch the movies they distribute. So we watch it and we dissect it. Okay. And we say, these are the elements that we think we can connect an audience to. And we don't try to put it out to the whole world. We really focus on who the core audience is. Because I always say, like I say to my students, if you want to win a war, do it one battle at a time. Do not try to win the war in one battle. You got to go win little battles along the way, and hopefully that will account to a whole war. That's what I say to filmmakers. Just go for a core niche audience. Go for 1,000 people. Don't try to go for 10 million. You're not going to get them. You don't have the resources or the skills to do it. Just go for people who you really think are going to want to watch your film. And so we identify that, and then we target it, and then we deploy their resources because they don't have a lot. Like they might have $5,000 to go and target that audience. So we target it. If we can get, say 1,000 people to watch their film and really like it, which doesn't seem like a lot, does it? But maybe each of those people tell 10 people. They say, hey, I saw this niche little indie film and it's pretty good. You guys should watch it. They become the ambassadors. Mm-hmm. That's called word of mouth advertising, which is the strongest form because somebody else is telling. We're not telling them. They're telling their friends. Right. Then maybe that becomes 10,000, which becomes 100,000. That's how movies really, really, it would be like going viral on the internet. Right. But when you have limited resources, that's kind of how you have to do it. But indie filmmakers don't want it. They don't know how to do it, and they don't want to do it. It's not what they do. It's marketing. It's micro niche marketing. So that's what we do for them. And I'm very excited about that because they need the help. We charge them fair prices. We make sure that our campaigns are super strategically targeted. Obviously, we can't guarantee results because you can get the message in front of audiences. You can't make people watch. But if you tell the message in a certain way and you make it very compelling, then hopefully they'll take a chance, is what we try to do. But otherwise, they got nothing.
Well, I think it's the most important, I mean, based on our conversation or not, I mean, it sounds like the most important asset to distributing the movie.
Well, I think it is, but, I mean, there's two components, right? Number one is you got to make a good movie. All right, so let's not belittle that.
Right.
And making a good movie is not easy.
Right.
Like I said, it's the little thing. There's a lot that goes into this. It's like a nuclear reactor. There's the ton that goes into this, okay? So I do not take that for granted. It's very hard to make a good movie, and it takes a lot of skill, a lot of vision, a lot of collaboration amongst a lot of people. So don't get me wrong, this is super important, and it starts with that, all right? But once you do this and you check that box, I made a great movie, then all of it is that marketing. Everything else is about that, is about creating audience awareness and connecting with an audience so that you're hopefully enticing them to want to watch the movie. And then you can monetize it.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about your movie that's coming out?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to talk about my own movies.
Yeah.
As you see, I like to talk about everything.
So you filmed this a few years ago?
I did. I filmed it in 2018, the end of 2018, and I finished it in 2019. It takes about a year to make a movie. Okay. By the time you develop it, plan it, shoot it, edit it, and get it ready for delivery, do all the sound, mixing the music, all this kind of stuff. So I completed it in 2019. And I was going to release it in March of 2020. So I did a year of film festivals. So I generally don't do film festivals, but this movie is called God Incorporated, and the premise is 4 business school students. The log line is this: controversy ensues when 4 business school students create and launch a new religion on campus. So it's a controversial movie. It speaks to the validity of religion, and I had a lot of fun. I wrote it, produced it, directed it. It was one of my babies. I really enjoyed this subject, and I wanted to do it. So I did it, and then normally I don't do film festivals. I go right into set distribution, whether it be through streaming services or television or whatever. But with this one, see, film festivals, despite what people believe, they're actually, what a film festival is, it's a celebration of the making of a movie. It's not necessarily the sales of the movie. The reason filmmakers go to film festivals is they want to share their movies with audiences and get feedback. They want to see a real audience screen their movie and then do a Q&A, question and answer period with them, and get feedback and interact with audiences and other filmmakers about their movie. So they're kind of celebrating the art that they created.
And this is before it's debuted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so film festivals always come first, all right? Now, sometimes if you're lucky, and it doesn't happen very often right now, there might be a distributor or sales agent or somebody sitting in your screening, and they like your movie, and maybe they make you an offer. And that's how you get distribution. And a lot of filmmakers say, the reason I do festivals is to find a distributor and get distribution. But it happens so infrequently. It's the wrong reason to do it. You do film festivals because you want to celebrate your movie with audiences. All right. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to get feedback. I wanted to have some fun with it, go to a few different cities, maybe win some awards, that type of thing. It's the artistic side of the film business, which I don't usually do because I'm so business oriented. I don't usually take the time to enjoy the artistic side. But this time around, I said, I'm going to do it. So I entered into a whole bunch of film festivals. I won some prize. I got Best Director at one of them, and it was fun to do it. So I spent basically a year doing the film festival circuit. Then I said, okay, now I'm going to release the movie, March 2020. What happened in March 2020? A pandemic. The world goes crazy. Everybody goes upside down. And I say, I can't release now because it's just crazy. Like it's going to get
theaters shut down.
Theaters shut. Well, this movie's not big enough to go theatrical, so I had no plans of putting it in theaters. But like everybody was just talking pandemic.
It's just chaos.
It's just chaos, right? And pandemic, and you couldn't get anybody's attention about anything else. The only thing people are watching is the news now. They're not watching movies. They're not watching. Maybe they are, but who knows? I didn't want to compete with any of that. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm not in a rush. This is a timeless movie. So I held it.
And you're able to do that? Like you have sole ownership over it?
Yeah, I own the movie outright, so I can control it. And I said, I'm going to wait strategically for a less chaotic time to release it. So I said, I'll hold it till September of 2020, and let's see what's going on. Now, of course, the pandemic got even bigger. It was even worse now. But I said, okay, at some point, I got to release it. So then I said December. But then something happened. In lo and behold, in like October, November, between those two dates, and this is the kind of thing that just you get lucky with. Hopefully this is a lucky thing. So remember I said the movie's about 4 students who create a new religion. So there's 4 main actors. So one of the actors, just out of the blue, happens to land this gigantic role and becomes Jake from State Farm. His name is Kevin Miles. And Kevin lands the role of Jake from State Farm in all the State Farm commercials. And State Farm puts a ton of money behind him, puts these commercials on every NFL game, on basketball, all over television. In January, he goes on the cover of People magazine.
Wow.
He's 3 Super Bowl commercials in 2021. So I said, oh my gosh, like this is really good because now Kevin's going to be really well known, his face anyways. I mean, everybody knows him as Jake from State Farm. They don't know him the character, but people will say, hey, I recognize that guy. Isn't that Jake from State Farm? So that helps to market a movie, right? So anyways, so I said, I'm going to hold this a little longer, see where this goes. Again, why not, right? It's still a pandemic and I'm not in a rush. So I hold longer and longer and longer. And I say, okay, I'll do it in February of 2021. And then they do the Super Bowl. He's on 3 commercials with Drake and Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. Like, I mean, gigantic commercials and like 3 Super Bowls.
It's like the biggest commercial.
Oh, it's the biggest commercial, right? And then afterwards, then they sign Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes to contract. State Farm does. And he does like 3 or 4 other commercials with them. And they air them every Sunday during the football season. And they're airing them during basketball. Like, it's everywhere. I'm sure you've seen those commercials, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I said, I'm not in a rush. Let me hold. This guy's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the whole world's going to know, or the whole United States anyway, is going to know Jake from State Farm.
Yeah.
So then finally I said, okay, this could go on forever, but he's gigantic through. I'm going to release this on Super Bowl Sunday of 2022.
That's amazing.
So I'm releasing it on February 13th, in a few weeks from now, from when we're doing this interview. And because I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but based on everything I've seen and anticipated, State Farm's going to own the advertising on this Super Bowl this year, and Jake's going to be all over it with Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. And last year it was with Drake, and who else? Who knows what they're going to do? They're probably got something huge planned. So I feel like he's going to be like a gigantic celebrity in everybody's eyes. And hopefully people will say, hey, that movie has that guy Jake from State Farm, and hopefully we'll watch the movie.
I feel like that he was, in a sense, an ambassador.
But I didn't plan any of it. It's just a lucky break.
Wow.
And hopefully people will say, hey, I want to watch a movie that he's in. They might not. They might not, but hopefully they will.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think it's only going to work in your favor.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's, it can't hurt. I can't see, the guy's a nice guy. He's got a great look. He's very friendly. He did a great job in the movie. So it can't hurt, but I'm hoping it'll help. But so it's good a time to release as any. So
where is that planning on being released?
So this is interesting, Michael, like it's interesting that you're having this interview with me now. This is such a strategic time in my sort of film career and life. All right. So remember I just said, like, I just launched this company to help indie filmmakers position their films for marketing. So I'm really big on that. I teach it in school. I do it for my own films. So now I've kind of launched this whole company called the Indie Film Solution to help supply marketing services to indie filmmakers. Well, the other thing they struggle with is getting their movies onto platforms. So, like, it's not like they can get their movie onto Netflix. Netflix doesn't want their movie. Most of the streaming platforms don't want their movies.
Because they're not big draws.
They're not big draws. They don't need them. As a matter of fact, they make the service look smaller. Like, if Netflix were to put a whole bunch of indie movies on, everybody would say, well, wait a second, I don't want to pay $12 a month for all this crappy indie stuff. I want big stuff.
Right.
So they got to be very careful with that. And I don't blame Netflix for that at all. That's a good business model. Mm-hmm. But where do the indie films go? Like, where's their home?
Yeah.
Where are they going to be seen? So in addition to launching the marketing service, I also launched a streaming platform.
Okay.
So I created a new streaming platform. It's called Congo Cinema. And it's going to launch with my movie. The first movie on that
Oh,
stream
that's
is
awesome.
my movie.
That is so cool.
So if I can draw the traffic from the movie, I'm going to draw it to my streaming platform. And my industry cohorts say to me, "You're crazy, Jeff. You know, no one's going to go to it. It's a brand new platform." And I say, you know what? I'm going to take a chance. I've taken lots of chances in my life. I want to take a chance. This is a really well-designed, very effective platform, so it's professional. It's brand new. Nobody knows about it. Let's see what happens. So that's where it's going. It's going.
So
there.
when you market it, then it's going to show, come see God Incorporated on Congo Cinema.
No, it's going to say, you need to see God Incorporated with Jake from State Farm. It's not going to say Jake from State Farm, obviously. It's going to say Kevin. Okay, you want to see this movie. And then when they click to see it, it's going to send them to Congo Cinema. Now, when they get to Congo, they're going to say, "Hey, what's this?" And hopefully they're going to say, "Hey, this looks like a pretty cool site, and there's the movie, and that's the only place I can get it. Let me transact it." Hopefully that's the case. Now, we have various other features on that site, which I built specifically for indie film. Remember, this is my whole life.
Yeah.
So there's two other really, really specific components to that you're not going to see on any other streaming platform. The main one is you get to, so I've always said to indie filmmakers phone me up, they always say, "Why is nobody reacting? Like, why is nobody taking my film?"
Yeah.
And I say, "You want the truth? Because your film's terrible. That's the truth." Okay, I said it. I'm sorry to tell you, your film's bad. That's the reason. And they said, "Well, that's your opinion." And I say, my opinion, I think, is shared by a lot of programmers and other people. That's the reason. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be other people who want to watch your film. I think the majority of people won't, but there will be some people. I'm not God. I can't tell who wants what. You obviously made the film. You like it. So there could be other people, like cars. Okay, there's cars I like, cars I don't like. The ones I don't like doesn't mean they don't sell. Just I'm not going to buy it, but lots of other people do.
It's not your preference.
It's not my preference.
Right.
So let's go find the people who want your film. Hopefully there'll be a preference, right? So I say, like, where is your movie going to go? They're not going to take it on this platform. We'll take it, but you're going to need to do some marketing. We're going to have to help you do some marketing. We'll put you on the platform. That's what this platform's designed for. I want a platform where indie filmmakers have a chance at least to show the world their movies. Okay, that's what this was designed for. Now, not every movie's going to work because sometimes people don't want to watch certain movies, but they have to market. Most of them don't know how. So one of the criteria is to market it. Now, the other criteria, I said there's a special feature. So I said one of the barriers, the major barrier to an independent film being seen is that it's not known, so it's not marketing. So we overcame that barrier. The second barrier is that you, as a moviegoer, you probably don't want to spend your time and money watching an independent film because you think it's not going to be worth it. You think it's going to be bad. So it's an investment. You have to invest, say, $4 or $5 of your cost, plus you have to invest an hour and a half of your time.
Right.
And if you think it's going to be bad, you don't want to invest it. So what we do on Congo is we allow you to watch the first half of the movie for free. And if you like what you see, then you can pay to watch the second half. But we're saying, take a chance. And we're not asking you to take a financial chance. Just take a chance with your time, watch the first half for free. If you feel the quality is there and the value is there, then you can pay for the second half. And if not, no problem.
That's perfect.
That's sort of the marketing tool.
Because you're kind of getting them in the door.
And you're saying, try before you buy.
Right.
Like, give it a shot. If you don't like it, we understand that you're taking a chance. You can't do it off of a trailer. That's not enough to see. So, give it a chance, and hopefully you'll like it, and then you'll want to watch the second half. Then the other component that's special on Congo is once a month, if you watch a certain movie, then once a month you can do a Q&A, a live Q&A with the director of that movie. They do it once a month, but you have to have watched the movie to have the Q&A. And so people like to engage.
That's great, yeah.
It's kind of like a film festival
Good
thing.
feedback there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I feel like the indie market is bigger, way bigger, than the big studios.
Not financially. In terms of viewership, there's...
But in terms of volume of movies coming out.
Way bigger. 10,000 indie films get made every year. Maybe 500 or 600 studio films get made. But most of them don't get seen, the 10,000.
Yeah.
So, one big studio film probably is the revenue of the other 10,000 indie films all put
but
together. Might be
they're
double.
also less. They're also using less money.
Yeah, less financial
Right.
risk. But sometimes people say, "What's the point? Why'd you even bother spending $100,000 on this movie? You just threw it away in the toilet."
Yeah.
Some people say that.
Well, you gotta give it a chance.
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe in it. Obviously, I do it for a living, so I believe in it.
So you said My Brother's Keeper. You had a fable behind it that your grandfather told you.
Mm-hmm.
Were there other movies that I guess that spoke to you in that way?
All of my movies are stories that I created, except for two. They're stories that I identified and that I thought would be good stories to tell based on true stories. Actually, sorry, three. Three of them are based on true stories. So I generally like to tell positive messages. That's my thing. So I either look for stories they're generally sports dramas that have strong endings. And the winner they don't always win. Usually they don't win, but they try their best. So that's kind of who I am as a person, the kind of stories I like to tell. But the other ones that I created, those are stories that have that theme. It's like, try your best. You don't have to win to be successful as long as you tried your best.
Yeah, that's a beautiful message.
Yeah, I like that message.
So, what came first, the book
Well, now you're switching gears here.
or the movie?
The movie came first. Well, the movie definitely came first. Okay. So the story that my grandfather told us was the story of two brothers who basically have completely different views in life, but love each other and help each other when they need to help each other. It's a nice theme. All right. So the movie I made, the story behind that movie, and I made the story up. It's not the story that my grandfather said. It's just the basic same theme of that story, the same plot. But the story I said was two brothers will have a dream of winning the national rowing championship together. But in order to do so, they have to row and be a two-man team. One of them gets a scholarship to an Ivy League college and goes off and rows for them and competes with his brother, and they end up competing against each other. And I don't want to give away the ending, but in the end, they actually, come together.
Okay.
So it's really nice. All right. But the two brothers, I wanted to give it a twist. So I made them into identical twin brothers for two reasons. One is because in rowing, identical twin brothers are exactly balanced. So you often see identical twins rowing, like the Winklevoss twins, the guys who were associated with Facebook at Harvard. Those guys were rowers, and I think they were Olympic rowers, and they're identical twins because they're super balanced, right? So in terms of the theme of the movie, that worked out well. But the other part is because I happen to be an identical twin. And I'm a mirror image identical twin, so we're very, very balanced and sort of opposite with my brother, which I'll explain in a second. And I love my brother, and we have a great relationship. We're totally, totally different, and we have completely different lives. But I thought it would make for two great characters, and the characters in the movie sort of mirror. It's not about us, the movie, but they mirror. One has his personality, one has my personality. So that's what the movie was. Now, do we want to get into my brother and I? Mm-hmm. Okay, so actually, my latest movie, God Incorporated, is more about my brother and I. So it started off with My Brother's Keeper. That was the whole sort of impetus to get into this. Okay. You see, that was sort of my brother and I, right? And again, the story's not about us. We're not characters in the movie. It's not about our lives or anything like that. It was just the inspiration for those two characters. So anyways, my brother and I are identical twins. So an identical twin is when you have one egg that splits into two, as opposed to fraternal twins where you have two eggs that are fertilized at the same time in the embryo that's there, in the uterus at the same time, okay? So identical, so you're splitting, so an egg splits, so the chromosomes are the exact same. Genetically, you're the exact same person because one egg split into two. Now, there's a thing that happens, it takes about 12 days on average, 10 to 12 days for an egg to split when it gets fertilized. So I'm not going to get into all the science and the chemistry here, but when an egg, and if it splits in that time frame, then you get two separate people. But if it takes a little longer, if it splits too slowly, then the body believes it wants to make two people, but it believes it's only making one. And instead, sometimes it doesn't split. So when it takes a couple days longer, one of the people sort of become right side dominated and the other person becomes left side dominated. Now, in the crazy situation where the egg actually starts to split but doesn't split totally, then that's when you get conjoined twins. And I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of conjoined, but they're joined like on the body
head,
or the
right.
head or I mean, it's really sad.
Yeah.
But you have these twins that were supposed to be two people, but the egg didn't totally split, so they stayed together conjoined. Now, sometimes they can separate them and sometimes they can't. But we're the middle version, which is the egg took a little too long, and so one of us became, but it split. Obviously, we're two people.
Could you imagine if you two were stuck together?
Oh my God. No, that would, it's actually sad. You know, we laugh about it, but it's actually sad but you know, these twins, you see them on the internet and everything like that, you know, they learn how to live with each other.
Yeah.
They're totally stuck together, right? And sometimes their organs are shared. Usually it is. That's why they can't separate them. They might be sharing a heart or a brain or something like that. So, but if they're not shared, they usually can separate them. Anyways, so we're marriage imaging, which took a couple extra days probably to split. So I happen to be, say, left side dominant, and he's right side dominant. So there's physical components of that, and there's psychological components, and it's really, really interesting. And so we were in a study on this. This is how I know about it, because we went to this conference for identical twins, and when you register, they ask you your left hand, right hand, this kind of stuff. So then they were doing research, and they said, oh, you guys are mirror image. Do you have the following traits? And they showed us all this stuff. So for instance, the camera can't see it, but I have two different shaped thumbs. So I have a regular thumb on this hand and a pudgy thumb, which they call a murder's thumb, on this hand. And he's got this thumb on this hand and this thumb on this hand. So we can put our hands together and make pairs. And these are my dad's and these are my mom's. Now, I write left-handed.
Wasn't it on here?
Yeah, it's on the back there.
Yeah.
I write left-handed. He writes right-handed. But I shoot right-handed and he shoots left-handed.
Uh-huh.
All right, I have a dimple here. He's got it here. I have a mark on my tooth here. He's got it here. So we both have 4 children. I have 4 boys. He has 4 girls. So we've have all these.
Think it goes that deep though?
Oh, definitely.
4 girls and 4 boys.
Okay.
Like,
Whoa.
so
that's not definitive. The 4 girls, 4 boys. But if you believe, as some scientists do, that the sperm determines the sex of the child, then that would be the case, right? It could be that. Now, as a joke, one year, you know, this was a joke, okay? So I don't want you to get the wrong idea. One day we said, you know, why don't we just sleep with each other's wives for research to see what would happen? Let's have kids together with each other's wives and see what would happen. So our wives didn't think that was such a good idea.
oh my goodness.
That would be the ultimate test, wouldn't it? Okay, we didn't do it though. But we talked about it.
Oh my goodness.
Just research,
That
you know, help better the world. Okay. Anyways, so that's all the physical stuff. There's a lot of physical reverse traits, and that's easy to identify. When you get into the psychological and mental stuff, it gets a little deeper. So we are pretty well completely opposite in that kind of stuff. Like he leans very right in his politics, in his thinking, in his mannerisms, in the way his behaviors, and I tend to be more liberal. I mean, more creative, more liberal in my politics, all this kind of stuff. And we believe that that's not socialization, because remember, we grew up in the exact same environment. Like, so we were socialized exactly the same. Mm-hmm. We think that's genetic.
Yeah.
That's what we think. Okay, now some of it could be socialization now, you know, because we live different lives. But here's where it really gets interesting. This is the part you want to talk about, and this is related to the movie. So he has decided that religion plays a very, very important part of his life, and he has become super over-the-top religious. So we're Jewish. We grew up Jewish. And we grew up in Toronto, Canada, and in our late 40s, we both made huge moves. My brother became super ultra-Orthodox observant in his sort of early 30s, and then in our late 40s, we both made big moves. I moved to Southern California, to San Diego, to live sort of the American dream lifestyle, because I love golfing, and I love sunshine, and I love outdoor living, and all that kind of stuff, and I love a secular life. So that's what we do. Like, that's how that kind of life, and I love it. And there's really no observancy in my life. Like, religion plays no role. I'm not anti-religion. People would call me agnostic. So I don't care one way or the other. What does that mean? Means that I don't have any beliefs.
Okay.
You know, that all my beliefs are neutral.
You don't believe in God?
An atheist doesn't believe in God.
Okay.
So my belief of God is I don't know if there's a God. I'm not saying there isn't a God, but I'm also saying I'm not sure that there is. So I'm saying I'm not going to spend a lot of time worrying about it or thinking about it. That's what an agnostic is.
Okay.
An atheist says there is no God.
Right.
And I say that's as ridiculous as a religious person saying there is, because how do you know? Okay, so as an agnostic, I say I'm neutral, all right? And my brother is super, super ultra orthodox. So I moved
Isn't that wild though, that in your late 40s, both of you made big decisions?
Well, because we were
big life changes.
So we were both in a position financially and in our lives to be able to do what we really wanted to do. Because, sometimes, like, we grew up in Canada. In Canada, well, first of all, let me tell you what my brother did. My brother moved to Israel. He moved him and his family to Israel because he wanted to be closer to the epicenter of Jewish religion and to God. And he wanted to pray at the Western Wall and be part of the narrative of the Jewish people. So that's where he lives now. He's super happy. He loves his life. He prays 3 times a day. He's into it. He loves it. I think he's nuts. He thinks I'm nuts. Like, we're completely opposite. But, in Canada, like, you grow up, like a lot of places too, small town, United States or something, they grow up and you're born into an environment and that's kind of where you stay because that's, you're comfortable and everything like that. So that's, not an unusual thing to do, but like, when you have a dream or a desire or something that you want to do, a change in your life, then hopefully you have the guts and the means to do it. And we both did. And we're both super happy. Now, our lives could not be any more different. I live this secular, fun life, what I call it. He lives this very observant, disciplined life. So we got into an argument about 25 years ago about religion, about the validity of God, the meaning of life, the purpose of life. And
just a random conversation.
No, it happened. It happened for a specific reason. So, if you're a religious Jew and you're a practicing religious Jew, then every Saturday morning you go to synagogue to pray. And you do not miss a Saturday. No matter where you are in the world, no matter what you're doing, you go to synagogue on Saturday morning and you read the Torah and you pray and you observe and you connect with God. That is like, because it's the Sabbath. It's called Shabbat, the Sabbath, and you do that. That's what a religious Jew does. And then you spend the whole day observing it, and you take every Saturday and you do nothing but connect with the Almighty. That's what religious people do, and they enjoy it and they feel it's meaningful. I happen to be, as you know, an avid golfer. So as an avid golfer, I also have a religion, and that is to play golf every Saturday morning. Like, I don't miss a Saturday morning. Like, I have to be in the Antarctica to miss a round of golf. You know that.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So I love golfing, and my ritual is every Saturday morning I golf.
Yeah.
So we happened to be together years ago at a place together. We were in Florida, and it was Saturday, and I said, I'm going golfing. And he said, no, you're not. You're coming to shul with me. And I said, I am not going to synagogue. I am going to my synagogue, which is the golf course. Wow. That's my synagogue. I'm going there. You go to your synagogue. So we leave at the same time. I go golfing. He goes to synagogue. We happen to arrive. It takes about the same amount of time. It takes like 4 hours to golf, 4 hours to pray. We happen to come back at the same time and sitting at lunch. And the conversation was who had a better morning, which led into who has a better life.
Yeah.
So, and he said, I just connected with the creator of the universe. And what did you do? Hit a little white ball around a park? Like, big deal. Like, I'm connecting with the creator of the, what I'm doing is so much more meaningful and so much more, important than what you're doing. And I said, I don't see it. It's just not my thing. I don't see it. I'm not saying you didn't have a good time and you didn't enjoy it, but you'd have to put pins under my fingernails to make me do that. Like, I'm going golfing. That's what I want to do. So that led into a lot of discussion, which ultimately led to us writing a book together. And the book is called Play or Pray, because play is the metaphor for my life, sort of that's, golfing and that secular life. And pray is the metaphor for his life, which is observance of religion. And the book is right there. And if you want to hold it up, so you'll see that the cover of the book is the two of us. And it's got me on the first tee of this golf course here where we're sitting, and him standing at the Western Wall praying doing his religious prayers with tefillin. Those wraps around his arm, that's called tefillin, and it's a religious thing to do, and the thing on his head.
Okay.
So, and that's him and I, and we're identical twins, but our lives are totally different. I'm the play, he's the pray. Mm-hmm. And the book is basically, the whole book is about who has a better life. Somebody who lives an observant lifestyle or somebody who lives a secular lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And we talk a lot about the purpose of life, the meaning of life, where we came from, where we're going, a lot of big discussions. And it was fun to write the book together, and we totally disagree with each other, but we love each other. And at the end of the whole message is tolerance.
Was it hard to get him to want to do that, write the book? Whose idea was it?
It was my idea.
Okay.
Definitely my idea. Well, no, wait, actually, he was on board. When we were having those discussions, he said, instead of arguing all the time, why don't we just put it in a book? And I said, absolutely, and let's do it. And so we agreed on what the subjects would be, how the chapters would be written. The book is primarily written in dialogue. So it's kind of him. I give my case, he rebuts, then he gives his case, I rebut. And it's fun to read it. Mm-hmm. And, we're talking from different perspectives, and it's actually written in two fonts. When I give my case, it's one font, and his is a different font. So it's really easy to read. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so this has been going on for years, and we've had lots of debates. We do speaking. Sometimes people hire us or invite us to speak about this because they want to see this subject, primarily the religious crowd.
Yeah.
The ones who are sort of doubting religion, the ones who I connect with. Anyways, about 3 or 4, no, maybe more, like 5 or 6 years ago, after the book had been written, I came up with this idea for this movie. And I said, hey, let's take the themes of this book and the whole narrative of, is God real? Isn't he real? Is religion enhance your life or doesn't? And I'm going to make it into a movie, and that's what God Incorporated is. And it's basically, as I said, 4 business school students create a new religion. And the question, 2 of them say, religion is very valid, and 2 of them say it's nothing but a business. And it addresses most of the issues in this book, but in the form of a narrative story, like a movie.
And who were the 2? Who were your voices in the movie?
So you've seen the movie, so you have to have seen the movie. So my voices are Farah, the one who's sort of anti-religion, who gets really, and Martin, the Jake from State Farm.
Okay.
And his voices are Rebecca, who is sort of exploring, has not rejected the religion, but exploring it and comfortable with it. And of course, Daniel, the one who is the Mormon, who is totally embraced in it.
Right.
And when you watch the movie, you watched the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I gave a balanced view? Like at the end, am I skewed towards pro-religion, anti-religion? And as you know, the movie ends with my brother and I talking.
No, I think it's pretty open. It's not definitive which one is right. I think that there was one really good part that I liked in the movie was Daniel and Farah, and they would go back and forth a lot. I feel like those were the strongest voices.
Yeah, for sure. Those are the extreme characters.
And then the other thing that I liked was how you incorporated the flashbacks to how they grew up, and it kind of helped, I guess, show their beliefs.
Yeah, their perspective. Yeah, why they believe what they do. Yeah. Like you saw Martin's father, go crazy on the phone against somebody and then tell them to go to Sunday school.
Right.
So super, super hypocritical.
Yeah. So you took this movie to Israel?
I did. So my brother, as you know, in the movie, there's a lot of swearing, a lot of cussing, a lot of bad language, right? But my brother said, I believe you did. My brother, he watched the movie several times. He said, I really like the movie. I think you did a fair job at depicting the characters and telling the story in a balanced way. And I would like to show this movie to my community, my orthodox, black hat, religious, right-wing community. And I said, they're going to watch the movie and they're going to kill me after. Like, they're going to sacrifice me, okay? I am not going to put myself in that position, like where they literally want to execute me after the movie. He said, no, you'd be surprised. I'm going to explain to them what to expect, and they want to meet you, and we want to do a Q&A afterwards. Let's do it. Yeah. So I go to Israel. I mean, I'm visiting my brother anyways, and I like to visit him and his family and everything. So I bring a digital copy of the movie, and he arranges screening 50 people, all heavy-duty religious people, 4 rabbis and their wives, like what you'd expect, something out of a movie. Like,
were you worried when you got there? Like, what I get myself into?
I said to them at the beginning of the movie, I said, listen, I'm very proud of the movie. I like it. It's who I am. There's a lot of bad language, and I don't want any of you to be offended. So right now, I'm telling you, if you can't hear lots of F-bombs, you should leave right now. Nobody left, because my brother had already told them that, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, we turn the movie on. They watch it, complete silence through the whole movie. Everybody's paying attention, which is really good in a screening. The movie ends like silence. It was probably silence for 10 seconds, but it felt like 10 minutes. It's like, oh no, now what? Now what? What's going to happen? So my brother Larry says, okay, who has questions? Who wants to ask Jeff a question? So guy, hand goes up in the back row. He stands up, big beard. He's a rabbi, right? He's one of the rabbis in the community. But I don't know this. I find this out afterwards, right? He turns to me, he goes like this. And he says, what's your Hebrew name? And I go, what's the difference what my Hebrew name is? He goes, what's your Hebrew name? Do you know your Hebrew name? I go, yeah, my Hebrew name's Chaim. He goes, because he has to talk to me. This is intimidation, okay? But not really, because what he's about to say. He goes, Chaim. Like, he can't say Jeffrey. Yes, Chaim. I think you're more spiritual than your brother Larry. I said, what? What did you say? He said, you could not have made this movie and told the story the way you did unless you totally understand religion. Like, you get it. You totally get it.
Wow.
I know this is in a black hat community in Israel.
That is bizarre.
It was amazing to hear that. Then I said, did you like the movie? He said, I totally disagree with your point of view about religion, but I think you did a fair job in depicting it. Mm-hmm. Did I like the movie? No, because I don't like swearing. I don't like movies. But I think you did a very good job at telling both sides of the equation. Mm-hmm. That was the comment. Then,
when he said that to you, when he said that you're more spiritual than your brother, were you in denial? How did you feel?
Well, then he said, okay, everybody get him now. They didn't. No. First of all, the first thing I felt was like, man, that's not fair to say about my brother. My brother lives an Orthodox Jewish life. I mean, that's not a fair thing to say, like that I'm more spiritual. I'm not more.
An insult to him.
I mean, come on. He didn't mean it that way. Right. You know, my brother lives an observant life. What he was just doing it as a contrast. But the truth is, I do understand a lot about it. I mean, I've watched my brother a lot. Like, we're very close, and although I would never live his life, I pay attention to what makes him happy and why he focuses on what he does. And I understand a lot of it. And I did a heck of a lot of research for the movie. I did a lot of comparative religion research and everything. So I understand why people are engaged by religion. But I choose not to be. That's a personal choice. But in choosing not to be, I don't say it's wrong. So I think that the movie said that, and I think the rabbi understood that that's who I am, is somebody who has made an intelligent, informed choice not to observe that, but has not said it's wrong to observe it. Mm-hmm. And do you feel the movie does that?
Yeah.
I don't pass judgment.
No.
I mean, I pass my own judgment in my life, but I don't pass judgment in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was very well balanced.
Yeah, so that's what he was saying. I think he said, in order to balance it that properly, you have to know both sides of the equation. So that was his comment.
So,
and I do, more so than my brother. Look, at anybody who's observant is going to be very, very skewed and balanced, because that's what they believe. Mm-hmm. They firmly believe it. And they would call me too wishy-washy. They would call me, too middle of the road and compromising.
Mm-hmm. Is this one of the movies that you would say is the most, I guess, connecting to you personally?
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just so much fun to write this thing and direct it.
Yeah.
It's a passionate subject of mine because of my brother, and it just, when you're doing this and you get 4 characters, right? With 4 sort of, like, I create the characters and I give them each voices, so I can let them portray a certain element of the dialogue a certain way. And these 4 characters each have a persona. Like I can tell you, Farah, she's anti-religion. Mm-hmm. Daniel, pro-religion. Rebecca, confused, not sure, undecided. Mm-hmm. And Martin, totally unengaged, couldn't care less.
Right.
So, and when you know that that's who your characters are going to be, you can give them certain lines and certain interactions, and you're using them as vehicles to get your message across. So that's why it was so enjoyable to write it and direct it.
Did you know that when you wrote it, before you wrote it?
I designed it that way. I totally designed it. I said, I want to tell this story. Like, I mean, it's an original story. I wrote the story. This is the message I want to get. I want to tell it through this business school, creating a new religion. And I want 4 characters, 2 guys, 2 girls, and I want them to be, this is how I'm going to tell the story. They're going to come at it from 4 different perspectives. Mm-hmm. So that's how I did it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. How long, how long did it take you to really like decide if you wanted to do this?
I've been wanting to do it. Like most filmmakers, when you ask, you'll see that they ponder their dream for a long, long time. Like I thought about this movie probably 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then, you think about it and everything like that. And then you get down to, you say, okay, now I really, really want to do it. So I wrote it, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago. Then I sat on it, let it ferment a little bit, because the first time you write it, it's not exactly what you want. And then I revisited it. Then I gave it to a story editor to kind of help me rewrite it, because sometimes you can't see the force. Sometimes you're like so engaged with certain things that you're just not telling the message. So it's very common to use a story editor to help you clarify your thoughts.
The final product or the written part?
The script, the written part. And then I felt I was ready, and then I shot it. I financed it. I raised the financing. I financed most of it, but I have a couple of partners. We shot it, edited it, and then the editor, has a lot of suggestions. I didn't edit it myself. He said, well, how about this? How about that? And, as the director/writer, I felt a lot of his suggestions were good. And again, it's like just it's already shot, but how you tell it. Like, am I going to focus on reaction shot or me talking, or 2 shot or 1 shots or that type of thing. Right. So I thought he did a very good job editing it. And then we put music to it and, it's ready.
What's the most time consuming part of making a movie?
What we call post-production, after. So you get it ready. There's 5 stages. Development is the first stage where you get it all ready. All right, so you get the idea, you get the script, you get it written, you do all this kind of stuff, and so that's called development. That takes about 2 to 3 months. All right, then there's pre-production, which takes about a month, maybe 2 months of getting the shoot ready. So getting your locations, hiring your actors, hiring your crew, getting your equipment, getting all the facilities and things that you need together to actually shoot the movie. Then there's production, which in indie films, they shoot usually in a month. So it's usually 4 weeks of shooting. So that took a month. And then there's something called post-production, which is you finish shooting it, and now you're going to edit it, and you're going to add music and special effects and all this kind of stuff. And that takes anywhere from 6 to 9 months, depending on how fast, if you have 1 editor or 2, and how fast you want to do it. So in this case, it took about 7 or 8 months. And then the final stage is called delivery, which is getting it all ready and finalized so that you can actually distribute it. And that takes a month, not even, maybe 3 weeks. But post-production, the editing, the mixing, what we call coloring. Remember, you're shooting all these scenes, and then once you edit them together, you have to color the movie so it all feels like it was uniform, shot sort of at the same time, same place. That's what a colorist does. And then a sound mixer will mix it all to make it feel like it was all recorded at the same time. Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a lot of moving parts.
Oh, that's nothing. That's the tip of the iceberg. We can have an entire other interview on what goes into making a movie.
Who's in charge of all that then? The director?
The director oversees it. Okay. So an editor sometimes a director will edit the movie. Like a lot of directors like to edit. They're editors. I'm not an editor, so I hire an editor. But every day or 2, I would go meet with the editor for an hour or so, and they would show me the scenes that they've edited, and I would give notes. So I'd watch it. So you're supervising as they edit, unless you're doing the edit yourself.
Do you have notes saying like,
I like this, I don't like the pacing, can we try this? How about changing this? How about this shot? I remember I shot this and you use that one, you know, and you see all the shots. Let's try this shot as opposed to that shot. So that's the storytelling component. And that's why it takes so long, because you're trying a lot of different things out.
Right.
Okay, so then it gets all put together, and it's what we call the final cut. All right, so it's all edited and you like it, right? And then when it's done, we call that picture lock. So you've locked the picture. So the next thing you do, now that you know exactly what shots you're using and the order and everything, and it's locked, right? Then you go back and you clean up all the dialogue, because sometimes the dialogue wasn't recorded properly. So sometimes you have to clean it up, maybe re-record certain things and everything like that. Then the next thing you do is you add music and effects to it. So often when you're shooting a movie, like let's say somebody walks out of a door or something, or somebody is eating, then you ask them not to hit their fork and knife against the plate, because it's going to screw up the editing, because you want to be able, then you add the noises in of them, of their fork and knife hitting the plate. You do that after the fact, because otherwise you have to match the edit with the sound of it. So that's how it's done. All right. This is called like Foley, so when you walk in a movie or a horse rides by or something like that, you try not to record those sounds because you don't want it in the picture. You add those in afterwards, because you have way more control when you do that.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. So you do the sound. So you've got the picture lock. Now you're going to do the dialogue, what we call dialogue cleanup or replacement. Then you're going to do the sound effects. Then you're going to add the music in. So the music is, music is so important in telling a story, because it can enhance the way you emotionally hear a scene or whatever. So sometimes you license some of the music. Sometimes you have a composer compose it. And there's two components. There's the songs that go in. So like in my movie, I have like Losing My Religion and Spirit in the Sky. So those are licensed songs from big artists that I paid to license to put in my movie. But then the rest of it is what we call score, where I hired musicians composers who basically they watch the movie and they sit by pianos and keyboards and they envision it and tell the story through music.
Oh, wow.
Certain scenes. So that's the composition. So then you do that. So now you've got your sound, and then you mix it all together so that it's nice and balanced, so you can hear the voices and the music at all the right levels that you want to hear that, and maybe certain effects and stuff like that. And if it's in Dolby 7.1, it's coming at you from different places and all this kind of stuff. And then the final thing you do is color the movie. So then you get what we call a colorist. And often the editors can do this if they want, but sometimes there's people who specialize. And they just take all the scenes and, remember, one shot on one day, one shot another day, one shot here, one shot there, and everything like that. And they make it feel like it's all uniform. So it's not all the same. Like we're sitting in this room and it's lit a certain way. They're not going to make it look like if we're standing outside.
Right.
But they make it feel like it's a uniform movie. Otherwise, it'll be very choppy.
Okay.
Now, these are things that you as a viewer would never know goes on, but that's what makes a movie feel right. And you can give it a certain tone or an impact or sort of an effect by coloring it a certain way. And these are all techniques that filmmakers use. So again, I didn't go to film school. I know how all this stuff works because I've made many films and I've read a lot of stuff and watched a lot of YouTube videos and all this kind of stuff. And I'm on sets a lot, and editing suites. So I just pay attention and I've learned it all. Mm-hmm. But people train for this. These are skills: how to color, how to edit, how to shoot, how to capture scenes, how to light. This really that's the art of filmmaking. Yeah. And there's a lot that goes into it. Lots and lots of moving parts. And that's why if you were to interview a true filmmaker, as opposed to like a business guy like me, they would have spent an hour and a half telling you just how to compose a shot. What lighting to use, what angles, what camera lenses, what all this kind of stuff. I mean, and it's very, very artistic.
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole education in its own.
Oh, it's an industry.
Just like what you were saying at the beginning about zooming in on your face to get emotion and stuff. Yeah. I know that that's what it does when I'm watching it, but for you to tell me that it's like, whoa, yeah, that is what's going on.
Well, at San Diego State, where I teach, so I teach distribution, right? I mean, there's a course just on choosing which lens to use for those kind of shots. See, I can zoom in with a long lens or a short lens, But the way I can zoom in is I could hold the camera here. Again, I'm not an expert, but I know enough about this. Okay, I could hold the camera here, and I can zoom in by changing the zoom on the lens. So the lens can move in on you or move out. Or I can zoom in by putting the camera onto what we call a dolly, a little moving track, and keep it at the same focal length and just move the track so that the camera actually moves towards you. And they're different effects. They're totally different effects.
Yeah.
So and that's just two. I mean, there's a million of those, right? There's like all kinds of different shots.
And it sounds like it happens pretty quick. The whole movie making process. You're saying, what, 6 months or so?
Well, it's only 4 weeks to shoot, like for the most part. And some indie films shoot in 2 weeks or 1 week. Some take 5 or 6 weeks. So the shooting is when people think filmmaking, they think production. They think you're on set, you're shooting the movie, you see the actors, the lighting, the camera, all that kind of stuff. That's what people think about production. Nobody really thinks about editing afterwards, or or the sound mix or stuff like that. That's not the sexy stuff. The sexy part is being on set and watching the movie being shot. That's only a month.
Yeah.
In the whole process of what is a year.
That's crazy. I feel like that's a metaphor for a lot of things in life, that you see the glamour, but you don't know what goes on behind it.
That's correct. That's a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it is a very intense month. It's a lot of fun. It goes, you're working really long days, and it's super, super intense is the right word.
Very structured.
It should be. If you know what you're doing, it should be very structured, because you have to get a certain amount of coverage. Like you have to shoot, say, a 90 or 100 page script in 20 days, meaning that, and I average 5 pages of script a day, which could be 2 scenes, 3 scenes, 1 scene, whatever. So if it's not structured and you aren't paying attention to the time, you got to be organized so that you can get it all and get it properly and get it the way you want it, because time really creeps up on you.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been on a movie set, you see how long things take. Like you get there and it's like they're setting up for a scene, and it takes 2 hours before they even shoot, and that's quick, right? It could take 6 hours before they even shoot, and you're saying, what takes so long? Well, they got to get the camera right. They got to get the sound right. They got to get the set right. They got to get this right. They got to, there's all these things that go into capturing the shot. Now, remember, that's an indie budget feature, right? A big budget feature, like, a $100 million film, could take 3 months to shoot. They could be shooting 1 page of script a day, because it's so intense. Like, think of shooting Lord of the Rings and those big epic scenes with all those extras, or, and all the stuff that goes on and how much coverage and everything. That could be 1 scene. It could be a half a scene.
Just because it takes that long to set it up?
Yeah, and get everybody in costume and get it all. Yeah, it's epic stuff.
That's
and
a lot.
There's thousands of people involved, and and it's a whole organization. It's like a whole city. There's those, so I have a lot of respect for filmmakers who do those kind of things, because even though they have the money, the studios are paying and they got big money, it's still so much coordination to get it done properly and get it captured properly.
A lot of moving parts.
Tons, but fun. A lot of fun.
Is that an option, though? Is that an option for you to maybe go do things with the big box office?
No. I shouldn't say no so quickly. I doubt it very much for a couple of reasons. One is I'm just not designed that way. I'm a sort of a bit of a control freak. I like to really manage and own what I work on. But secondly, I'm not at that level as a filmmaker. I think I'm a good director. I think I have a good eye. I think I'm creative. I think I'm a good problem solver. I'm a good leader on set and everything like that. But not at that level. These people spend their whole life directing. I spend most of my life selling.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not at that level. It's funny, whoever watches this will say, wow, that's the most humble thing Jeff Deverett's ever said about himself. But it's true. Like, I don't want to belittle. Some of these directors, it's their entire life. And they're so well trained in cinematography and lighting and in shots and sound and all. They know all the skills that they need. Plus they spend just countless days and hours and months and weeks like figuring out the shots and envisioning it all and everything like that. So could I do it? Maybe, but I don't have that kind of training, and frankly probably not that much interest to get that deep into it, because I like the whole gambit of the business. So I do love making the movies, and I really enjoy it. But you know, if somebody said to me, "Do you want to direct $100 million feature?" I would say, "You're kidding, right?" Like, I would love to, but are you sure I'm okay? Are you sure you're going to trust me?
Yeah.
Probably won't happen. I'm not going to hold my breath.
Well, it sounds like you're very well versed in the indie films. You know, obviously spending a lot of years on that, and then you said it was Indie Film Solutions.
The Indie Film Solution is my new company that is the marketing arm for indie films. So I call it the Indie Film Solution just because everybody's been struggling to figure out sort of a way to get their films out. So I just use the word solution, and it was available, and I like the name, and it speaks to what it is. But yeah, I'm an indie film guy. Like, I really like it. I understand it. I'm an entrepreneur. I know how to take risk. I'm comfortable with that. So I really relate to indie filmmakers. You know, just if I were to do that big Hollywood studio film and I'd have to go and report to the Hollywood executives and answer them and everything, I'd probably end up saying a couple of words that I used in that movie that wouldn't be good.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously indie films are, I guess, created maybe by the director, whereas like the box office, who's creating those movies?
Studios. So the studio is, I'm going to say the marketing department's in a studio. So the studio says, okay, we need 2 or 3 big, what we call tentpole movies for the year, like really big, epic films that are going to draw a lot of attention, a lot of box office. That's what the studio executives do, you know, in the office towers. So then they get their production and marketing executives together, but mostly the marketing ones, and they say, okay, what's trending? What should we go for? And these days it's like superhero films.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we got? What superhero films do we have available? You know, what action things are going to work? You know, and this is years before, because it takes, for them, it's 3 or 4 years in the making. So they're anticipating 3 or 4 years later. Wow. So we're going to, you know, in 4 years, we want to release, you know, 2 epic superhero films and 3 action films or something like that. So let's look what we got. Let's figure it out. Let's either get some scripts, or let's option some books or whatever, or some rights, or let's dig through the libraries, tell us what you got. Okay. Then the marketing department says, we think that this Captain America film, that's going to be trending. We can build up the hype for it over time. We'll release these sort of animated series to get the audience going, blah, blah, blah. We'll build it up. So we'll create demand before it even exists. And let's do this. And it's a whole business plan.
Wow.
It's a good business plan because it's well thought out. And now production, go make us a great movie. You just make the darn good movie. We got everything else covered. So here's $100 million. Go make a great movie and make sure it gets delivered on time and on budget on this day. And marketing, you take care of the rest of it. Get the audience awareness built up and all this kind of stuff. And then the financial people say, okay, they do the math. If we do this, we're forecasting that we're going to sell this much of it, and here's the business case for doing it. And you know, and they talk to they run the studio, and they report to the shareholders and say, here's what we're doing, and they hype it all up, and it's going to make this much money. And hopefully 1 or 2 of them make that much money. And then that's what they focus on. And the ones that don't, they kind of tuck away and divert everybody's attention.
So how does the money side of it work? So say something like Fast and Furious does, I don't know, 700 million at the box office, and it took 100 million to make the movie. So who gets paid the extra 600 million? How does that all be spread around?
Good question. Okay, I'm going to do some sort of quick math for you, because it's a little more complicated. I don't want to get into the real details of how this works. I'll just give you sort of the overview of it.
Okay.
All right. So let's use that. They make $100 million movie, Fast and Furious. Okay. They're likely going to spend, let's just for round numbers, let's call it another 100 million to market it. Okay. They might not. It might be 50 million or 75.
Well, they say the budget for the film, does that mean it's 200 million now?
Well, some people call it that. Okay. They might say that. Okay. But they should say that the movie costs 100 million and the marketing costs 100 million. Okay. Right. Now they might call it a $200 million film. All right. Okay. All right. So now they spend another 100 million to market it. All right. Again, I'm just using round numbers, so it's easy to do the math.
So they're in the whole 200 mil.
Correct. Okay. Now they put it out in the theaters. so which is called box office. So when the theaters were open, obviously, and it generates $600 million in box office revenue, people buying tickets. So the first people who have their hand in the kitty are the theater owners, the people who run the theaters. So AMC and Regal and all the theater chains, they take a cut. With a big movie, and it's different. Depends on the size of the movie and what the revenue is based on their cut. So a big movie is going to get a smaller percentage because the numbers are so big, whereas a smaller movie, they'll take a bigger percentage. So on a small movie, they might take 50% of that, whereas on a big movie, they might only take 10 or 15 or 20%. Okay, so they get a big chunk of it. So let's just call it, for, again, discussion, let's call it 10%. So they're going to take, you said 600 million. Okay, so they're going to take 60 million. But let's just call it 100 million. Okay. So the theater is going to take 100 million. So whatever that is, 16% or something like that. Okay, so now 600 million. The theater chain takes 100. So there's 500 million. Okay. And you spent 100 and another 200. So now there's only 300 million left. All right. So that money is going to go back to the studio. In the case where there was somebody else involved, like it might be that one company makes the movie and the other company distributes it. You're using a studio scenario where they distribute their own movies, but often there'll be a production company that makes a big movie, and then they have a deal with a studio that releases the movie. So the studio will take 100 million also, meaning that the production company gets their 200 million back, or in that case, the studio would pay for the advertising. So now there's only 200 million left, so they make that. Okay. Now, you just depicted like the top end of the movie business. Right. Usually it doesn't happen that way. Usually they just break even, and then they make the rest of the money on streaming, or back then it was home entertainment. Oh, wow. Yeah, now they have to sell some television rights, some streaming rights, but that's big revenue, it's funny, this morning I was watching TV, I was watching the Today Show, and a commercial came on for Ice Age, the movie Ice Age. All right, they made a new movie, a new animated movie. I'm pretty sure it was Ice Age.
With the squirrel?
Yeah, that one, right? And the two mammoth elephants and everything. Okay, so, and they said they did a television commercial on the Today Show, which is an expensive television commercial. And I was expecting, because I've been in the movie business so long, I was expecting opening this Friday at theaters near you. That's what I was expecting. Okay. But it didn't say that. It said now streaming on Disney Plus. And I'm thinking, wow, that's crazy. They're doing television commercials to draw people to Disney Plus to watch the movie and hopefully subscribe to Disney Plus. Right. So instead of getting their $15 at the box office from these people, they'd rather they subscribe for $10 a month to Disney Plus, because it's probably a better revenue stream for them. If they can draw traffic to Disney Plus and get a monthly subscriber, that's what they're doing now. This is a whole different business model for them.
Well, and it sounds like, I guess if they were to break even in the theaters, they wouldn't need to spend. I guess it's all a wash then.
It's all a wash. The goal is to make money with everything you do. Right. But it's considered very successful if you break even in the theaters. You're doing really, really well between your advertising cost and your production cost. That's a very successful movie, because then you own the movie outright. You've already paid for it, and you have all these what we call ancillary rights to license and market to get a profit over years and years and years.
So you're breaking even, the theater's making money.
Yeah.
You're
spending a lot on advertising, obviously, but that's a good business model. Now, of course, they want to make money with the theatrical release, but if they don't, they're not in the hole, because. Right. And then there's the rest of the world. You're just thinking in the United States. They have the entire world to sell these things. So
you're saying even if a movie does that well, like 600 million and their budget was 200,
no, with 600 they're going to make money. But what I'm saying is most movies don't do 600 million at the box office. So a $200 million movie, like 100 for production and 100 for marketing, might do 400 million at the box office, in which case by the time the theater's taken their share, the distributors, everybody's had their hands in the pot, that might just be a break even. Mm-hmm. Now, if they only did 250 million, they've actually lost money. They're in the hole. Right. But it doesn't mean they're going to lose money on the movie. It means they just haven't made it. What they've done is spent that money to position the movie so that people hopefully will watch it in streaming or watch it elsewhere, want to see it, and they can monetize it elsewhere.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's part of the
Well, I guess the game's changing now.
The game's totally changed. And it's continuing to change. I mean, do you know how many streaming platforms there are right now? Guess. Like how many? I'm talking subscription streaming platforms where
I mean, over 50.
Close to 200.
Okay.
That I know about. Okay.
I mean, I only know about maybe like 12.
Yeah, exactly. And as a regular consumer, like how much can you watch?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, like how many subscription models are you going to like?
You got one show you like over here,
right.
The other one's playing on
so
this one.
you want to see HBO because you got this show, but you want to see Disney because this show, and then you got Apple with that show and Netflix, and that's how they get you, right, with good content. But at some point you say, like, I'm spending $100 a month and I'm watching one show on each thing, so something's going to have to give. There's either going to have to be consolidation, or there's going to have to be models where you can only watch shows or something like that. Something will give. And it keeps evolving. It keeps sort of coming full circle. But it's an ongoing dynamic. It changes all the time. 2 years ago, the landscape was totally different because the big streaming services hadn't launched yet. In 2 years from now, who knows what it's going to look like?
Yeah. I mean, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, I feel like they kind of just got on board.
They did. They launched, a year ago,
Yeah.
right, during the pandemic. And they should have launched 10 years ago or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But, they got into the game. They're both doing well.
Well, it was working for them. They had the licensing thing, and they were like, okay, we're good with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Then the world changed and the model changed, and they had to change with it. And, Disney Plus is killing it. I mean, but why not? Look at the value for consumers. I mean, for Disney, I'm not plugging Disney Plus here, but if you love the Marvel universe, they have it all. The Star Wars universe, they have it all. They have all the Disney classic films, if you love that. They have all the Touchstone, all the films that they've made as a film studio, all their television product, all of Fox now because they bought that. I mean, all the Pixar stuff. I mean, the value for $10 a month is crazy good for consumers. Mm-hmm. So why not?
Yeah.
I
feel like they really niched down to just their stuff.
So this morning when I saw that commercial, I was expecting it, go to the theater to see it, but no, instead go to Disney Plus. Like, that's smart, because once they get somebody to come to Disney Plus with that movie, hopefully they'll keep them, and the person will see, look at all this other programming I like. I'll just keep paying my $10 a month and be a subscriber. Way better, predictable revenue model for them.
What do you think will happen to theaters?
I think theaters will stick around. I mean, listen, I don't know about you, but I love going to movie theaters because I love watching big epic films in big epic environments. Like, no matter how big my screen is going to be in my living room, it's going to be a fraction of the size of the one that I go to the theater. Yeah. Plus the sound system. Like I said, I'm a movie snob. I'm in the movie business. I want to watch a big film in a big environment the way it was meant to be watched, with surround sound and all this kind of stuff. So hopefully people like we will keep the movie business, like the theater business, alive. Plus, also, I want a night out with my wife. It's just something different than sitting in your living room all the time, Now, obviously, in your living room, it's nice. You got a good system. You got a glass of wine or whatever, and you're enjoying it, and it's convenient. But we're human beings. We need activity. We need to get out. I love watching that stuff. So hopefully the movie theater business will stay healthy. But right now, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Because people are scared, I mean, it's getting less tough because, people are coming back. But the pandemic really put a nail into that one.
Yeah. Yeah, they got hit.
Which is too bad. It's not, nobody's fault, but it happened.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they're still running.
Well, what do you think? Do you want to go back to movies?
Yeah. We went to the lot the other night. It's a fun time.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a night out. It changes things up rather than just watching a movie in your living room.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. And it's a better movie environment, don't you think? Like a big movie on a big screen looks better.
Yeah, I feel like there hasn't been much that's been coming out. I feel like there hasn't been many big movies coming out, maybe just because everything that's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they don't want to take a chance and lose revenue. So they're either going to hold it to when the theaters...
You think that's what they're doing, is holding a lot of movies?
They are. They definitely are holding. They're definitely holding. But some of them, they're going into the streaming platforms too and drawing, they're creating sort of awareness and excitement on their streaming platforms. Mm-hmm. But they've tried doing both. Sometimes they release theatrically at the same time as they put on their streaming platform. And they're trying lots of different things. But, these studios are public companies. They have their responsibility to their shareholders, and they have to do what's fiscally responsible. So artistically, I'm sure they'd like to release them all, but you got to time it and make sure that you can get the traffic you want.
So is Netflix, like Netflix original films, are those just people maybe like they see an independent director and they hire them and say, hey, well, we want you to make this film?
Used to be like that. That's how it started off. Like, hey, you're a good filmmaker. Do you want to make a film for us? Mm-hmm. Now they're a production company and they have in-house staff, more or less. Like, people want to be Netflix directors. They want to work for Netflix. And so I'm sure they hire a lot of outside people still, but they have a whole production department.
So they're kind of like a studio in a sense
they're
now?
100% totally a studio. They're totally vertically integrated. They have all their development, production, everything, and then of course they've got the streaming service, so they're vertically integrated. They never have to deal with the outside world again, other than customers. They're not only are they a studio, Netflix is the biggest studio now, by far. Wow. I mean, they're spending the most amount of money on new production.
Wow.
More than anybody.
And do they still do? So they'll put those out on Netflix. Are they still going to do TV rights and things like that?
Yeah, they'll maybe not as much them, not yet, but they own everything. That's their library. So that's their asset value of their company, that they have all this sort of built up entertainment value that at some point they could monetize if they want to. But right now, the best way to do it is to keep it exclusively on Netflix and draw the traffic there.
Right.
But if things were to change and the world changed, maybe Netflix goes out of business, they still own the library and they could license it to some other platform or some other TV place or something like that. Because it's at the end of the day, it's about content. People want to watch good programming, and they have created a lot of good programming. So they'll always be able to monetize it as long as people want to watch it. Primarily, it'll probably be on their platform, but it doesn't really matter because that's why they did it, so that they have this asset value, as we call it, so that they can do it elsewhere if they want to, or do it for years and years and years on their own service, or maybe create their own television stations or their own movie theater chains. I mean, Amazon got into the movie theater business, as you saw. I think they purchased, AMC or whatever. Yeah. So this is just more vertical integration, where you control the entire distribution channel.
Wow, that's real interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So independent films are incorporated in Netflix?
Not as much as they used to be. It's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. So the first year that I sold to Netflix was 2015. That year they bought 900 independent films. They told me that. The second year was 2017. They bought 600. Then in 2019 they bought about 300. So it kept going down and down and down. And I haven't sold to them during the pandemic, so I'm not sure, but I'll bet you it's less than 100 because they don't need them, because they make them themselves now, and they make bigger stuff.
Well, and aren't they also like buying rights to old things?
Yeah, they are, and they're buying rights to a lot of foreign stuff. I mean, look at the biggest show on Netflix is the Squid Game, which is Korean.
Oh.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, now they're looking at the whole world and getting
that show
content.
Was
huge. Yeah. Biggest show, and it's a Korean show dubbed in English, but yet it was their number one show.
Wow.
And a close second was I forget what it's called, the other Korean show with the ghost guys that come, and Hellbound, or I think it's called Hellbound.
Okay.
Yeah so it's not just about American shows now, it's the whole world feeds it. But then again, they do have operations in like 160 countries. I mean, they are worldwide, Netflix. Mm-hmm. So lots of stuff that they show in the United States doesn't get shown elsewhere, and lots of stuff that gets shown elsewhere doesn't get shown in the United States. It's very territorial. Some things go worldwide.
Well, it kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier, marketing. They put Squid Game out there. It's a sensation.
But somebody had to make a decision to take a chance with that show in the United States. Mm-hmm. Because generally American audiences don't want to watch dubbed Korean shows.
Yeah.
But this one they did. So somebody at Netflix made a very good call on that one. Now, had they not made a good call, they could have pulled it very quickly, but who knows how much money they spent to license it. But It's probably a favorable deal, and it worked out really well.
Do they have that in the contract? Like, okay, in a month we can cut it and only pay you this much?
I don't know, because the only contracts I know from Netflix are the ones that I get.
Right.
But those shows are done at a much higher level. Who the heck knows?
Yeah.
Probably.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's Netflix controls the narrative pretty well. The content creators don't say, hey, this is what you need to do. Netflix says, this is what we're going to do. It's just because they have the leverage right now.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it'll be interesting to see how that changes over the years.
Yeah, now we've talked a lot about Netflix, but it could have been any big streaming company. We could have talked Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, HBO Max, any of them. We just used Netflix as sort of the example because they are the biggest, you know, and the most robust for sure. But they're all like that. This conversation could have applied to any of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot more to it than you thought, eh?
I know. I'm really happy that we did this, Jeff.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you coming on.
No, it was great to chat. And as you can see, I like to chat. I had a lot to say, but I'm glad you asked a lot of the right questions. We got to chat about a lot of stuff. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And maybe we'll have Larry on next time.
He would, I'm sure, love to do it, but his perspective would be a lot different than mine.
Yeah.
You might enjoy that even more.
Appreciate it, Jeff.
Okay, thanks a lot, Michael.
Thank you.
All right.